Many years ago, I interviewed Barbara Lamb, and the topic of our conversation was her spirit marriage to a reptilian who was of a more noble type. Today's guest, Dr. Megan Rose, learned through her studies that spirit marriage was actually a thing, historically and around the world. Today, she's going to tell us about this phenomena in which a human being is married with a spirit being. Welcome. This is a really juicy topic. I think people find this I found it intriguing when I interviewed Barbara Lamb. That was maybe 15 years ago, and I haven't talked to anybody about that since then. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled to be here today.
May I read something that I found on your site in your video about spirit marriage? You read a little bit, Thomas More's book, Care of the Soul, and this was the quote from it. "It's in the nature of things to be drawn to the very experiences that will spoil our innocence, transform our lives, and give us necessary experience and depth." I love that. I wrote it down at the time. I paused your video. I said, I have to bring that up because clearly you brought it up toward the beginning of your talk, so it was important to you. So tell us why that is important and then weave that into how you began in this field.
Thank you, yeah. Well, the idea that it's sort of spoiling our innocence and opening us up, transforming us is what really I find so juicy about that quote. And in my own life, I was, I'd done a master's in seminary and religious studies and was kind of what I considered to be pagan light. But I had had a very strong upbringing in my Pentecostal upbringing, where channeling the Holy Spirit was just sort of par for the course. That's what
opening
we did.
To entities, opening to energy and letting it flow through you. So that was part of your being, your makeup. You had a lot of experience in experiencing external energies.
Yeah. And, my childhood was the Holy Spirit primarily. Although when I was an infant, less than a year old, I had a birth defect in my kidneys. And the minister, my mom, my aunts, my grandmother all anointed me with oil and prayed the Holy Spirit fire into my body. So this is like before I can talk, before I even know what's going on. And so I really trace my opening back to that moment, because that's when sort of the veils between the world, before I even knew that there should be a veil between the world, were thinned for me. And I was raised with just this tremendous amount of what I now understand as Shakti, right? This potency. But as a child, it was just me channeling the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues.
Did you see beings, or did you see the Holy Spirit? Were there any visual perceptions, or it was mostly a feeling moving through you?
It's the felt sense. I'm mostly somatic in my extrasensory capabilities. And so it was this feeling like, your tail's on fire and it's shooting out the top of your head and everything around you is vibrating at, brighter and brighter speeds. So growing up like that, I really only found two places that I could really feel grounded and safe in that. And one was in nature. I had a tree companion, an oak tree, a live oak, huge 200-year-old. I used to climb up into it and rest my spine against the trunk. I relate
to that, yes.
And sing to it and just sing and talk to it. And so that was one of the safe places where that amount of energy and that extrasensory or otherworldly perception was really supported, and I spoke to the nature spirits, I spoke to the tree. And then also in the Pentecostal services of my childhood where I was the kid with her little arms raised in the front row, writhing in the spirit. And I mean, the interesting thing is that it felt a lot like just this powerful erotic energy flowing through me. It felt wonderful, and I think the adults in the church would sort of
getting out of control a bit here.
But it's an interesting corollary phenomena between what the Pentecostals are working with and what the shamanistic and the spiritualist type communities are doing. It's kind of same. It's just that it's got this very regimented, highly structured way in which it's allowed to be done in the Pentecostal church. Right? It was all about the Holy Spirit. Right. Which later I understood was just wisdom, Sophia, the goddess, the divine
Right.
feminine, right, that was moving through me.
So you go ahead, and you're a very curious person. You love education. So you completed your master's. Like you say, you were pagan light at this point in religion. And then this something happened, and you learned about this other thing. So let's go ahead and dive into it. First of all, give us a definition of what spirit marriage is, and then we'll kind of back into the story.
So spirit marriage is the bonded and often intimate relationship between a human and an otherworldly being, or an extraordinary being is what I kind of prefer to call them, because sometimes they are of this world. And it shows up transculturally. When I first encountered this phenomena, which was in my early 30s, I had gone through a Kundalini awakening experience, and then I like to say I was sort of like lit up on the spirit realms, and I had to go through the whole process of learning how to like really safely and sanely navigate that. But this extraordinary being kept showing up in my dreams, and I knew it was the same being because my body responded the same way every time they would appear. And over a course of a few years, they started asking me to marry them.